Miss Joan, I am so happy to have you back. I I just I just very much appreciate both your approach to color and your teaching is like it is a mad skill. It is and that's a huge compliment. That is really
Well, you know what? I was a mainly sixth grade teacher for 10 years. So I learned how to make lesson plans, which, if you've taught elementary school, then you learn how to multitask and that. And so I'm sure that when I started being asked to teach, that's the first thing I did was lesson plans and what am I going to say and how am I going to say it and is it in the right order of learning?
Mm,
That kind of thing, which comes natural to you if that's what you've been doing for a decade, you
yeah.
know. So I was really fortunate in that because I had no idea, you know. Um, Yeah, I took to teaching quilting, kicking and screaming. It
I think
wasn't something that I wanted to do, and But anyway, I've did it for 40 years, so I think that um, it was really a great part of my life. It really changed a lot of things in my life, and it forced me to do some things I'd never done before.
mm,
One of my friends when I was uh let's see, I probably would have been just somewhere in my 30s. She wanted to and I sewed my clothes. She wanted to take a quilting class, and she asked me, since I sewed, if I would do it with her, and I said no, I wasn't interested in quilting. And quilting wasn't something that I never saw a real quilt until actually I met somebody who did it, and that's the only person I met, and she was a traditional quilter for sure. And but my friend could not find another person, so she asked me again, and I said yes, I would. But when it was a quarter long class at the high school in the evenings, and when the quarter finished, I had one finished project, a pot holder, and 11 unfinished projects. And being Scottish, I had to actually continue for two more quarters before I could get everything done because everything was done by hand in those
yeah.
days. And so, and then a fabric store opened up, and they kept asking me if I would teach, and I'd say no. I said no for about 3 years or 4 years, and finally I said yes. And and so then that led to this. I would have never been in this field if it hadn't been for Jean begging me a second time if I would work with her. And the fact that I was so slow that it took me a year to finish my projects.
Mm, so perspectively speaking, Um, I would, as a teacher now, I would say your quilts take as long as they take. And some of it I've discovered has to do with our own interest in the project. Like if it's a machine quilted piece, I am all over it. If it's a pieced project, it can wait. But that's where my interest lies in the machine quilting and exploring what color will do over the surface of
Mhm.
the fabric. And so yeah, and I have this um deep flaw. I have a deep flaw. Um it's sort of twofold. One, if I can imagine the whole thing in my head and all the steps to it, I don't actually have to do it. I I can get there. But also, I don't necessarily think that everything has to be finished with a binding and a label and a sleeve and all of that. So once I've gotten it to a point where I'm done, I'm done. And if I can gift it to somebody else and they can finish it, great.
Well, that's great because what you're interested in the end is in the process of
Hmm.
thinking of a design and carrying it through.
Hmm.
And it doesn't have to be finished to carry through because all that other stuff is just finishing stuff.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like hemming a dress after you've sewed it,
Yeah.
and putting the buttons on and all that stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah. If I'm
Okay.
actually gonna wear it. So yeah.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see where you're going today because partly because I just love your thought process, but also partly because like you know color like really well.
Well, I added something on and I was going to write you and tell you, and I thought, oh, well, I don't have time. So, um, so basically there's three subjects.
Okay.
Okay. So this is what we're going to do today. We're going to chat a bit about color scale and focus structure and direction, which might not sound exciting, but it's really good to know. And then how to create depth in your quilts.
Ooh, this
So
is all very exciting.
I I um I had to put in the focus structure and direction simply because that is the backbone of the design. So it's something I never knew when I started,
Okay.
quilting. Okay, so we shall begin. I'm going to get a drink of water here. Oh, okay. So at first, there are four color scales, and they're all important. And everybody has their favorite, and everybody has one that they don't particularly care for, usually. So the color, that's what we're going to kind of look at right now is like different color scales. So the pure color scale is the colors when they haven't had anything diluting them. So pure red, pure blue, and pure colors are the colors are considered the colors of summer because they're the
Okay.
brightest, well, obviously the purest, and they're actually hard to find in fabric, but certain colors you can find all the time, but others you can't. Um, so when we're talking about pure colors, they're the colors that come off of the color wheel. And so you can see it that these are all the colors from yellow all the way to a yellow green over here, yellow green. And the pure colors basically um, are really spirited. And so you probably don't want to cover your quilt with pure colors because it's a little too much for our eyes. But if you want to have an exuberant or energy-packed quilt, then one of the ways that you do it is by um, using your selection of pure colors.
Sure.
Or you can use pure colors very limited in a limited fashion, and it allows us to take our eye and look in different parts of your quilt. So this is a what I would consider a pure color quilt. Now, it doesn't mean that every color in the quilt is pure, but it has an exuberance, and Carol loves energy and loves designing with curves. And you can see, for instance, that here's some pure colors and here, but you can see also that there's some grayness here, and the grayness will recede and the pure colors come forward. So the brighter a color is, the more it's going to come towards us. And so pure colors are really kind of hard to find in some fabric stores. So if you love pure colors, then you might end up having to go traveling a little bit. Um, and this color here, I mean, this quilt is called Pizzazz, And there are a few pure colors. So there's some yellow here and there's a little bit of reddish oranges here. But you can see that a lot of these are not, none of these are pure colors here. So if you put the whole, if you have a quilt and you put everything in pure color, it's almost too much for the eyes. So you just do what your soul tells you to do and stand back and see if it's a little too much or if it's not enough. It's just fun to work with pure colors in different ways. Shades are colors that have been blackened. So when you think about a pure color, once it's a pure color, then if you blacken it, it changes. And so mostly we think of the shades as autumn colors. And you can see them here. You know, you've got the rust and you've got the um, different levels of rust, different kinds of rust. You've got the avocado leaves along with the dark le green leaves. So autumn is often the season we think of when we're talking about shade scale.
Okay.
So here's the, if in this little schematic here, here's the pure color orange. And I've taken the pure color orange and done a little bit of a strip here. And this is white and this is black. So you can see how the color, if I take orange, if I have a white paint and I start just by putting a drop of orange in, really tiny drop, then you can see how it changes, and each drop makes it change. And of course, so the darker it gets, the bigger the drop has to be. Sometimes you have to have more than one drop, but you can see how it goes gently. And I'll just say that anything that's anything that's been whitened, that's not a pure color, that's lighter than the pure color, is called a tint. And these
Okay.
are all tints. And then here's the pure color. And now once I've gone and added black, here's my first addition of black. I could have done another addition in here. You can see I'm got a big space here. But anyway, each of these is a little bit darker and darker and darker till I get to black. And so every color you can do this to, going from white to the pure color and going from the pure color to black.
N-
And blackened colors are called shades, and whitened colors are called tints. Here's an example of various, here's a pure color and various rusts and browns that come off of those colors. So if you're, wanting, it's fall now, I always seem to work seasonally. If I was going to do a fall quilt, I ended up having to do it in the fall. And if I'm going to do a summertime quilt, I'm doing it in the summer. This is yellow, and this is
um,
added a little bit of black to yellow. And so we're going into avocados, and then we're going into olives, and then we're getting into black.
in this entire scale, you're adding black only?
Black to the yellow.
Okay.
I'm just because we're into shades now, but I showed you before the one schematic where you went from white to black. But here I'm just taking since we're doing shades, I just took the yellow and then I'm just adding black to it. So these are all shades. And every color, every pure color, you can do the same thing, with black. And I just do them on 3x5 cards and paint and make a mess in my kitchen when I do this. But anyway, so every color has the ability or the capability of going from white to the pure color and then the pure color to black. And
Wow.
see you see such changes in the color as for instance, um, the light colors on the color wheel, like yellow and light greens and soft oranges and everything close on the top of the color wheel. They're they are they go their shades are way more. There's way more shades on the light side of the color wheel. When you get to violets and blues and blue violet, etc. There's not much difference between those and black. So there's very few shades in those in the lower part of the color wheel. And in the upper part of the color wheel, you have way less tints and way more shades. And then on the sides of the color wheel, it kind of evens out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it actually does. And so forgive me for a second. On the screen right now, we have this yellow to black, and I am blown away that in the center part of this, it's very green. And this is like, Joan, this actually explains to me why um our le- our our understanding of color is actually skewed because we've got these beautiful colors here that if you were trying to do this with yellow and blue, because yellow and blue, what we were taught very young is that yellow and blue makes green. Well, it does, but looking at this, there's actually a much broader range of color that
Yes.
we can go to. And when you were showing Carol's quilt a couple of slides back, I it I think I don't know that I've seen that quilt in person, but I think Carol does some of her own fabric dyeing to achieve the colors that
Great.
she's looking for. And this actually gives an opportunity if you're into fabric dyeing, which is a whole other like it's a whole other part of the creative process. But this actually gives you a better like some of these colors I would use just to like I would go find thread colors and then um and see what I could do with that. But I am just blown away. I am really just like I yeah, this is amazing to me because it's really shifting my whole understanding
Mhm.
of how we achieve color, which then when I do color theory 101, it changes how I look at having them approach color and then bringing color into their quilts either with fabric or thread. And something that I know from the type of machine quilting that I do is that the thread can change the surface, the look of the surface, and this actually shows why. The more black that you're using here, you're getting deeper, richer color. So it's going to change what you're visually seeing in there.
Yes. And the color tool, I just dropped a color tool here. The color tool, actually, I did all those paintings. So you can actually, this is a little bit different than this because I probably started off with a, slightly different yellow, etc. You know how that
Right.
goes. But it still gives you kind of shows you the effect. Um, and you're gonna get, I think with the warm colors, you get more surprises than you do with the cool colors.
Okay.
I think the cool colors, uh, like if you're doing if you're doing blue, I think it's going to be pretty much going from light to medium to dark, etc.
Right.
But I think that the warm colors are surprising.
Uh, y-
And the
I
warm
would have
colors
heard
are
that
like
from
and there's
I
a
would
lot
have
of warm colors.
well, so the other in between our last conversation and this one, I went to my local crafting store and I bought some acrylic to play with, some Liquitex acrylic to play with. And I was surprised by how like how beautiful the color was, how pure the color was, right? by getting the cyan, the magenta, and the yellow, as opposed to the red, the green, and the yellow.
Oh, yeah, right.
The red, the blue, and the yellow.
Yeah.
And it's a simple color shift, but it's something that actually gives you a better understanding of what's actually happening when you're adding a little bit of color and kind of charting all of this out.
Well, scientifically, it is yellow, magenta. You know, it's not red,
Right,
you know, and it is yellow, and it isn't blue. It's a cyan. It's cyan or cyan blue, and that really and that has, I forget now which famous scientist figured that one out, but that's been in the works for more than a century, a couple centuries probably. And but because we've had the red, yellow, and blue color wheel since kindergarten, I mean, that's how we were taught. It's
right.
hard to get, it's hard to, well, that's can't possibly be, that's not, whatever. But it is, and you're not going to get the same colors. Um, Now I have a son who had to make a color wheel, I think in seventh or eighth grade, and it's very sad that they don't teach, the proper um, colors that create the color wheel, because then you would know this, and you would get better colors, you know. So anyway, we'll go
Yeah.
onward. I love these colors. They're just um, there are a lot of if you have a quilt and you use a lot of shades, you're going to
Hmm.
find your design disappears because shades are darkened colors. So a lot of times you'll find that you're better off creating a design that moves the values a little bit more so that you can see it. Or sometimes you might find that you would like to have a lighter background and have your foreground be the darker part. It just depends on your personality and what you want to do on that any particular day, I guess.
Yeah.
I love this quilt, and I think Meredith did this. Yeah, this is a 90s quilt or an 80s quilt. I should have put the years, but I didn't. But most of these quilts are not new quilts, but
Right.
I still love them. And this is a good example of a lot of the shades. And same here, the rusts and the olives, etc. The dark colors. There's there's there are some tones in here, but mostly what we're seeing and what our eyes catch are the shades. And I love this quote. It has a lot of energy, and it's got uh, tones, grayed down colors, and it has shades. Primarily, those are the two scales that this uses. But it's really fun to see how, like, when you see the shades, they're so rich. They really add to the colors that are most quilters use pretty much toned or grayed down colors. Maybe not intentionally, but that seems to be what most of the fabric stores have. But you can see that, and you can also lose your design in parts, which makes it kind of fun to basically see part of a design and then maybe get lost in the design. So this has a lot of, I love this quilt. It has a lot of character, and the palette is really fun. Now tints are as I, as we were talking about earlier, are just a mixture of white with a pure color. And because in order to get a tint in fabric, you have to start with a fabric that's been bleached white.
Okay.
It can't be natural, and so that means that's an additional process, which means that costs more. And on the whole, it used to be you could find tints more readily. Now, your best bet for finding a tint is with a dye artist because some of them, they'll buy the tinted fabric or the white fabric, excuse me, and then the colors that they then dye on are going to be beautiful tints and pure colors and beautiful shades. They're not going to have any toning to them. And so tints are really hard to find in a quilt store. In a fabric store, you could probably, I mean, you might find 5 tints in a store that has 1,000 bolts, you know,
Mm,
if it's a true tint. And so I don't have any tinted quilts to really show you, but I have some fabrics, and these are tints. Um, and I've put I put here pure yellow. Oh, actually, it's a little bit lighter than a pure yellow. But you can see that all these fabrics then how great they are.
hmm
So most of our fabrics have a toning or a grayness to them. And so whenever you have a fabric that has less gray in it than the others, it's going to pull forward. And the grayer fabric is going to push backward. And if you understand that and accept that concept, you can actually sort your fabrics into different, I mean, yeah, your fabrics into different layers that you want your quilts to have. Because most people would opt to have a quilt that has a design that has dimensionality to it, I think.
hmm
You know, so the fabrics that have the least amount of gray are going to come forward, and the ones that have the most amount of grayness to them or tone to them will set back. And so you see it here. That these are, tints in maybe not quite so much toning. And then you've got fabrics here on the outside who are that not who that are definitely toned. And you can see that even, these are quite light, but they're coming forward. There's no way that they're going to, if you put them back here, they're going to look, well, with a black background, they just won't look as nicely as they do here. The tone scale is a grade scale. And for instance, there is no color in this photograph that has anything but gray in it.
Right.
So everything here is toned. And tones are the scale of winter. And that doesn't mean that you can't use tones in a summer design of some
Right.
sort. It's just that they are. Uh, and there's no fabric or no color, I should say, in this quilt of Rita's that is anything but toned. There even the black basically has a little bit of grayness to it. But tones are restful. Uh,
hmm
Pure colors, energize you, and these quiet you. So, if you have a kid who has a lot of energy and you want him to calm down, putting really uh, a quilt with a lot of pure colors is not going to do that. So,
No.
if that's a goal. So I love this quilt of Linda's. I love most of Linda's, almost all of Linda's work anyway. But here you see the shades, the brown shades, and and compared to the grayness, they kind of pop forward.
Right. Yeah.
If she would have used tones for her trees, they would kind of sit back more.
Hmm.
And there would and everything would be toned and she wouldn't get the emphasis that she has. So it's where she's used, these are shades, really. And if I see I mean I love browns. Well, I love any color that's dark that doesn't have any grayness to it because you don't need very much of it because a lot goes a long way. But
Yeah.
it's really nice to have in your collection. So we've talked about tints, the really light, soft colors, the pure colors, the really bright, the shades, the darkened colors, and the tones. In generally speaking, in most of our quilts, we end up having almost almost all of our fabrics are going to be toned. In some, some are going to be really toned and some not so much. So how do you get people to look where you want them to look? So in oh my goodness, I put Ludmila's Ludmila's name, yeah, backwards. Anyway, if you look at this quilt, what's the first thing you see?
That blue right in the center.
Yes, she wants you to actually focus on the blue onion domes of Moscow. And so she's done that because why? She's able to do that because those blues have less gray in them than the other blues. Those blues have less gray in them than any other color in that quilt or
Yeah.
in, the design. So if you want to show something or want it to be us to focus on something, then make sure that whatever that object is has uses a color that has less gray in it than the surrounding colors. And if it's the thing that you want, the object that you want to have showing through, I mean, that it is the focus of your quilt, then it needs to be absolutely the clearest. It doesn't have to be bright red or bright whatever, but it just has to have less gray in it than everything else. And that works for you.
Hmm. I can see that. It's really cool that she's created a very strong focal point, but then she's used other nuanced versions of the color in the background to keep you looking
Hmm.
at the depth of the quilt.
And excuse me, and these this blue here, notice it's not quite as strong as this blue here.
Yeah,
That's why you're going to look at this one first. If they were kind of equal in strength, then your eyes would go back and forth and you wouldn't know where to go.
yeah.
So it's really important when you're creating your quilt to stand back and look at and take a picture with your phone and see if it's see if it's working, the way you want it to work. So I love this quilt of Rachel's too. And this is her grandmother's kitchen. And she remembers her grandma, making wonderful um, food. And she wants us to look all the way around. And so notice how she's using blue. Blue here, blue here, blue here, and blue here. So your eyes are moving like this. So you see everything. Where does she not want you to look?
I would say at the window.
At the window, notice how toned it is. There's nothing exciting out here. She does not, she wants the window, but she wants you to keep your eyes inward. So she hasn't made trees that are bright and beautiful or flowers or whatever. It's all very grayed. And so that's done by thinking it through and thinking about, okay, where do I want people to see? And note that, for instance, she's used blue as a place or as a color to keep your eyes going.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of important if you want a person to see around. If you only want them to see like in Ludmilla's one place, then it's different, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But there's strategies, you know. When Anne's mother passed away, she made this quilt in memory of her. And
Oh, wow.
I just love it. And one of the, it's just so beautiful. But notice how gray most everything is. But the leaves that have the least amount of grayness are the ones that are popping out.
Mm-hmm.
And even the grayness, I mean, this is not much less gray than this, but it's enough that this is rising a little.
Mm-hmm.
And so is this and here. And so she's just made it so that there's a little bit of life here and there. And also with the greens, the dark greens and everything. So just playing with color scale is really a wonderful way to work and to do something interesting or intriguing in your design. And
Yeah.
it's not necessarily done by a shape, although these are all leaf shapes, but it's done through this color scales, the varying degrees of color. How much grayness is in a color. And of course, the more gray that a color has, then the more it's going to set back. Of course, if it's darker, it's going to come forward. So there's that too. It's it's a fun play.
Yeah, it is. It's beautiful.
And here, the color of the umbrellas, this one I can't quite get. But anyway, that's that's where your eyes go to. And so then you see, this is called Sisters. Oh, you know what? I didn't even put anything on here. This is one of the ones that I think I added. Um, and hmm, I'll think of her name because I've got another quilt of hers, but she lives in Australia. Anyway, fun quilt. And she just wanted to have the three sisters sticking out, and the umbrellas were the way to go. But I think this slide has kind of lessened, the color there.
Yeah,
And here, what a great fun little quilt this is.
absolutely. That is so fun.
And where does your eye go?
Right to the bottom.
Right to the bottom. And I had seen this quilt for maybe a year before I actually got my eyes up at the top of the quilt to see that, oh, there's gumballs up there too. They just are not colorful. Isn't that clever the way she's done that?
It truly is. And I mean, it's almost like you get this delightful burst of color, and it's evocative of, for many of us, a childhood memory of putting the coins in and getting this color in our hands, getting that
Hmm.
ball. So, and and like as children, that's where our focus would be, right?
Exactly. Well, that was where mine was. And Liz is really talented. She has a lot of different quilts. I love her work. It just um, so eye-catching. And yet I mean, just yeah, she's got a great sense of design. Okay, so this section here is, I think it's one of the most important parts of quilting if you are planning on designing your own quilts. I-
Right. Okay.
If you're not designing your own quilts, then you don't have to much concern about it much. But I know when I first started designing my own quilts, I had no clue what I was doing. And that was I started in the 70s. And it just I didn't know. I made so many terrible quilts, and but that's part of growing up and etc. But your design can have several different things in it. It can be a vertical. It can be a vertical design. It can be a diagonal design. It can be horizontal. It can be
Hmm.
circular. It can be an open curves, not really circular, but basically curved. It can have an L structure. It can have a rule of thirds. It can be triangular. So those are your choices of how to create a really good design. And and if you choose one of them, then it's kind of like the skeleton of your design. It gives you a sense of where you want to go or how you're going to go. So here we'll start with vertical designs. There's a ton of quilts that are vertically designed, and it just means that the design is going vertically. And this is a great example. And what I loved about Lenore's design here, if you look, almost everything that you see in here is rectangular. It's, I don't, there might be almost a square here, but basically, she's really played with the shapes beautifully to create a repetition of vertical design. Now, Denise is a vertical design, but she's complicated it a little bit because the stones, which are so beautiful, it's hard to believe that they are fabric, but they are. Anyway, they're horizontal, so you really have to, you know, think through to make sure that it continues to be a vertical design. And by having this open door here really helps to clarify that. I don't know if you know of Kent Williams's work, but oh my gosh, he does amazing designs with value and color, etc. And many of his designs are vertical. Horizontal lines, horizontal design. If you're a person who likes to do scenic work, then your horizontal is probably better.
Hmm.
And I was thinking about, uh, well, I'll do it some other time. Talking about um, how to decide if you're doing a wall quilt, how to decide, your dimensions of your wall quilt. But this is really a fun quilt. 2 Minutes in May. Whoops. 2 Minutes in May by Shirley. And I just love all the little bits of mud and all the beautiful um, decorations. And of course, there's overlapping a little bit. You can see that you get some depth from the overlapping. And I think this is a cute quilt that Beth made. Again, it's horizontal. And it's a little tricky if you're working horizontally and you have some vertical in there too. So you really want to make sure that your whatever it is that you're working as horizontally is going to be more powerful than your whatever it is that's vertical. And by making these colors very grayed and the trunks very grayed, that really is helpful.
Hmm.
And of course, this is beautifully done. And I love the fog and I love everything about this quilt. It's just, or this design. Um, Lenore did a great job. Another horizontal, just the strength of this. I mean, now hmm, if it was going to go, if this was going an angled curve, then it would not feel horizontal. But the fact that there's a lot of weight in here that gives it the horizontal feeling. And Helen, she went to the lake that her Penticton is a city that has a lake on either end of it. So she went one day to take a picture of the sun setting, and she's waiting for the kids and waiting for the kids to go home so she could take this picture of the sun setting with, with nobody there. And she realized the sun was setting. And so she snapped this picture and she decided that actually it was a much more interesting picture with the kids in it. And the picture and the quilt look exactly the same. She did a great job.
Wow.
So she's got some, she's got the vertical, but she's got enough of the feeling of horizontal to carry it through. And I love this. This is just such a Inga and Steen are so their designs are so beautifully done. Diagonal direction is it gives you some motion, gives you some energy. It's fun to see. Um,
Hmm.
and there's different kinds of diagonal, I mean it doesn't mean just go one line. You can do a lot of different things with diagonal direction. See how much energy that gives you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, so this is a pretty strong quilt. And the diagonal is really intriguing, It's just a line with a butterfly.
And if that line wasn't there, the quilt wouldn't be as strong.
No, no, it needed that. And it actually needed this bit of break here too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, yeah, it's just sometimes simplistic is perfect.
Yeah. Wow. Aw.
And again, the main diagonal line goes right to the moon. There's other things going on. Mm,
And all the things going on are actually leading you in that direction of looking at the moon.
yeah. Barb, I have a couple of hers, or maybe three, I think, here. They're all stunning. She does stunning work. Now, this is a really old quilt, and so the slide is pretty bad right now. But this is done in the 80s. And I love the idea of, having it going into quietness. And I'm not sure if I think there might be a little bit of yellow, and it didn't meet up with this, but just that you can see that a little bit of change there. And this was probably the simplest quilt I've ever made. I wanted to get rid of some of the fabric in my stash that had been sitting for a long time. So basically, I didn't have a design or anything. I just thought, okay, I'm gonna get make a block of um, four values. So, there's the darkest, and then two mediums, and then a light. And the mediums would be, they're kind of like together. But anyway, then I just put them together and had a ball doing it. And I hadn't really, I think I kind of designed it a little bit, but not much. But in the end, I like this design. And I pieced it in, I think, piecing the blocks in 2 days. I had to go to the fabric store and get a couple more fabrics that I don't normally use or didn't normally use, but it was fun to do. It's just a play piece. So, so enclosed curves are, circular designs, and we've seen beautiful circular designs, many traditional ones, and this quilt was it was a stunning quilt. It was I think it won the best of show and sometime I think in the 80s in Washington State and it's just an amazing, all done by hand. Um, but you can also do as amazing things by machine. So, and this Dynica did. I love this quilt. It's to me it's amazing. I think about how did she even think about this? I love this background. It's
Yeah.
just uh, totally awesome. It's not light and whimsical at all, but it just is a beautiful work of art. The thing about circular designs or closed curves is they can be anything. I mean, look at how different all these are.
Yeah.
Open curves give you even more options. Uh, Um, you can do all kinds of designs with open curves. This is a really old quilt, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I had fun doing it. And it was probably one of my first designs that I did that wasn't a traditional pattern. Um, and Colleen, I love this quilt. I just, it's different than the other ones in this section, but it's open curves, the curve,
Yeah.
first of the ball, but she's got a background to go with it. L shape, um, there aren't a whole lot of L shape quilts out there, but and I used to teach a design class, and so I just thought I'd throw this in. This is one of the one of the students, one of the years, their L-shaped example of, and it just amuses me. Very cute. And did you ever not have a Band-Aid on your knee when you were little?
Yeah, I frequently had them.
But so
Oh,
here's the
wow.
L.
So she has a very moon related and bird related theme.
Yes, yes, yes. Or, she does other things too, but these are the ones I chose. And this is by Inga and Steen. It's called Cantankerous too. And I love this quilt. It reminds me of one of my brothers who was always wanting to be different than everybody else, you know. So it's just clever. And so not very many quilters use the L shape as their structure, but it is a really interesting way of working. And there, you know, if you put your mind to it, there's probably some really creative things that one can do with an L shape. And here's another L shape. Oh, you know what? I forgot to. Okay. I'll have to give you this. And um, here's the L.
Yeah. It was because we're talking about this, the L was immediately obvious in two different ways, but it is really dynamic in how the L creates visual movement. It helps
Mhm,
create that visual movement for you.
mhm. And it gives you the structure, you know. And
Yeah.
and so it's one of the way, you know, doing a vertical design or a horizontal design are basically what, or a circular design are basically what most quilters, you know, think in there. But there are a lot of very creative people out there,
Hmm.
and they may never have thought about doing an L-shaped design. And it probably has to grow on you. You probably have to think about it and how it could flow and what you would be doing. You know, it's just it's a it's one more little way that you can do some creating, innovative creating. I think that's my last. Oh, well, this one too. And this is, I thought I put this in because even though it's like the other birds, it's coming from the other side.
Right. Yeah. Love this.
And the rule of thirds, you know, as a photographer, I really pay attention to the rule of thirds a lot. Um, and I don't think I have, this is the part I left out. And so I'd have to spend more time finding more quilts that have rule of thirds. But basically, a rule of thirds is this: whatever your structure is it, you know, square, rectangular, vertical, elongated, whatever, you divide it into thirds, you know, and then at any of the intersecting points, that's where you want to have your um, main focus. Um, and it
Okay.
could be that you're going like this and like this, or it could be you're just doing something here. And it gives you a weight structure. It's really you know, like, well, I'll show you. So I, I have a friend who does metal work. And so I was over at in his wife's house recently, and I took some pictures of his metalwork. So, you know, maybe you would put it in the middle, but it's kind of sometimes it doesn't feel good in the middle. And so this is the rule of thirds is right here. Now, I didn't do necessarily well, this might be close, but you know, when you're taking a picture, you just have to kind of do it by feel. And this is the crossroads of, you know, working in thirds. And the moon was just so big that night. It was unbelievable. Oops, I thought I put in, I guess it came out. Maybe you'll find it in another place. Triangular focus structure. I only have one quilt showing a triangular focus structure, and I love it.
Oh, wow.
And here's the triangle.
Yeah.
And it's also a really innovative way of working. So those are, I think, yeah, those are those are the different structures that you can use. And if you've stayed in vertical, horizontal, circular pretty much most of the time, you might want to play with some other structures. And they'll give you different options that you never think of before. And I think it might be fun to go to an art gallery or go to some place to see how other people have created using the different structures, you know. And once you become aware of the focus structures or the direction of the design, you you can become more aware of how you can design and how your options are. It gives you greater options you know, for working.
Totally. Totally. Like the options then they're almost endless
Yes,
in how you get to explore what they can look like.
yes, yeah. And it might start out with something, for instance, a triangular design might start off with, okay, I'm going to work with some triangles, but then start other things start happening, and you can't help yourself.
I like that. You just it's like those potato chips. You can't eat just one.
That's right. That's right. So anyway, those are the focus structures or the way that designs can be configured, using uh, different different directions.
Oh, wow.
So now we're going to go into depth and basically, I think the three ways that I think of choosing creating depth, and they're all, you know, uh, work, and it depends on what your quilt is, but layering or overlapping is probably the easiest way and probably the way that quilters have been doing it forever.
Right.
And so that's not new at all. What I love about Lumilla's piece here is besides just layering, look at how she's made textures or created more texture
Oh,
with
she
layering.
was playing with the fabric.
She's playing with the fabric, very
Wow.
definitely playing with the fabric,
Yeah.
pleating it and tucking it and doing all kinds of little things. So, she went um, one more option that creates a beautiful design.
Yeah.
And we don't see it as much, in a slide as we would notice it, in real life.
No, and it's part of what captured my attention is there's another quilter that I've met who does this kind of texture from England. Gosh, her name escapes me. But the there are slight shadows with this, even though the fabric is the color, but because there's shadows there as a result of her playing with the fabric, manipulating the fabric, you get this extra dimension going on there, visual dimension going on there because of how she's playing with it, which is it's very interesting to look at then, because you're looking at the overall scene, but you're also looking at, oh, that's really interesting. I wonder how she did that. So
She's so artistic. She does so many wonderful things. Um, and I love this little quilt. And I love the layering. And that's you know, all you need is those layers. But I should say, look at what she's done with the background. She's grayed it down, uh, so that our attention is really up front.
yeah.
I
Wow.
love it. And this is a really, really old quote. This is probably done in the 80s also. and some to kiwi, and it's just a cute, makes you smile type of a quilt. Oh, we already saw this, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah. Um, so again, this is overlapping. There's it's showing depth through the overlapping. Um, and notice that she's grayed down the blue in the sky so that all of our attention is on the horses and the riders um, and basically this is the ground is very grayed and then just this gives some girth to it. And then color temperature is another way that you can play a little bit with depth. The stronger the color is, the more it's going to come forward. So when you have a temperature with warm and cool, then you know that the warm colors are going to come forward visually anyway.
Yeah.
So that's a really easy way of working. So you don't have to worry about, you know, the background at all. You're basically warmth and cool. And then the last type of creating depth is my favorite, which is atmospheric perspective. Atmospheric perspective means that as you look in the distance, or as you look in the distance, things get lighter, grayer, and less distinct as they get farther back.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so each of these, um, this is in North Carolina. No, this is in Tennessee. So each hill you can see is getting a little bit lighter, lighter, and grayer. And this is the way I work with quilts. If I in a and I did a lot of scenic quilts, and you have to do atmospheric perspective to make it look realistic. But your other quilts, you can do that too, also. So here's example dark, and this is the next one back, and it's a little bit lighter and grayer. This one's behind this, it's lighter and grayer, and then this one is really far back, this mountain. These are just hills, and this mountain is far back, and you can see how gray it is. And so lighter, grayer, less distinct. That's what it is, lighter, grayer, less distinct. And sometimes all it takes is taking a fabric and working and using the back of it rather than the front of it. And
Right.
I have used a lot of back sides of fabrics. Some of them they're not capable of it because they have too much whiteness in them or something.
Mhm.
Um, but this is a great quilt showing uh, this technique. So Paul's biggest pineapples are out here, and they're the darkest. Then his next darkest are these ones here, and they're smaller. They look
Mhm.
like they're farther away. They look like they're back. And then the softest ones, the lightest gray ones, they're smaller and they're lighter and less distinct. And so he creates the feel of depth, all using the same colors, but in different intensities.
Amazing. Oh, that is amazing.
This is a really old quilt too of Allison's. And, she's used strong colors in the top and the bottom.
Right.
And then as she's getting farther back, she's starting to use some lighter grayer ones. And then to and that's making this, and then of course making it smaller and smaller really creates that. And then making the background just soft grayed down colors, pumps this up. It's just floating.
Wow.
It was very contemporary in its day, as you can well
E-
imagine.
And even with some of the current designs in quilting, this would actually fit in with the modern, what they call the modern quilt movement in its structure, its simplicity, and its use of color.
Yeah.
Wow.
I cannot remember the name of this quilt. Is it right? It seems like it has fantasy in it, but it's not. But again, I wanted to have some depth, and so the strongest colors are, these here and this. And then just the background was easy. I just used the same colorations that are in this fabric here and here and here, but I made sure that they were, much softer, lighter, grayer, less distinct. And so that creates the background. And so the foreground, this and this are just um, easy to make.
Yeah.
No thinking. And the same way with this quilt. Um, the reason I called it Memories of Monet is I was at a conference and they had a little store that had fabrics to buy, etc. And I bought a 1 yard of Monet garden fabric. And I knew when I bought it that I would never use it. I mean, and I don't know why I bought it. I guess I just was in La La Land or something. And then I thought, okay, I've got to use it. I just bought it. Okay, so what am I going to do with it? So I decided that I would just make all the centers from that fabric. But I wanted to have depth there. So I made sure that this the fabrics in the outer part of the star were the darkest, the most eye-catching. And then I wanted to have this bar going under, feeling like it was going underneath these
Yeah.
pointed stars. And then I wanted to have the background. So I made sure that these fabrics here were lighter and grayer than these fabrics here. And then although these are not necessarily grayer than these are, but they're lighter, so they're sitting back and not coming forward. So this is basically what I do for traditional quilts when I want to have different layers. You can have 3 layers or 4 layers or 2 layers, but you designate and figure out, what fabrics are going to be in what layers and make sure that you stick to it. And if you're not sure, then nowadays all you have to do is take your phone and take a picture and then go. You can see right away pretty much if it works, but also you can put it in black and white or gray or something like that, and you can definitely see if it's working.
Yeah.
So this is a good example of depth, and just everything's getting smaller and lighter and grayer. This is a unbelievable quilt. It was also made in the 80s, and it just all these little pieces, etc. And the stones with the water, it just was amazing. And my slide is not that great, but there it is. And for this quilt, the mountains on the other side of the water this is the darkest, and this is a little bit lighter and grayer. And then this group here is farther away and lighter and grayer and less distinct. So it's just, lighter gray or less distinct every layer that you want. And you need to actually take your fabrics and pile them up and make sure you have them the way that it's going to work. And some fabrics, uh, if they're going to work on layer number 2 and layer number 3, then they're not going to work at all. You,
Mm,
you know, you want to make sure that they don't make it wishy-washy so that you're not quite sure what you're doing.
wow.
So I love working with depth, both in scenic work. Obviously, you need to, unless it's whimsical, and or else. And I love working with it traditionally. I really like having the feeling of layers with traditional work. Oh,
It's actually quite dynamic when you do that because it there's more to look at.
yeah.
There's significantly more to look at because the part of the block catches your attention and then you realize there's something behind it and then there's something behind that and there's it's not just movement but it's as though you're looking through something to
Mhm.
whatever's beyond there.
And then the thing that also happens is it makes it more interesting for you to create, and it's kind of more inspiring,
Right.
and so your interest stays with it. And of course, then you look at fabric a little bit differently. And oftentimes in the fabric store, I would look at back sides of fabric. I mean, who looks at back sides of fabric in the fabric store? You know, but the thing is that there's a reason for looking at that backside. Will it work for me? And I should say that um, I my general habit was to buy usually a third of a yard of a a fabric. I wanted to have a variety and a whole yard of a fabric, going unless you're needing it for background, I mean, for, the back of the quilt or whatever, it's way too much. And even if it's a stunning piece and I half a yard and I have to have it, that's okay. But basically, in a fourth of or a 12 inches is just not quite enough. But 30 of a yard, what am I
Third of
saying?
a yard is
Oh,
12.
12, 12, 12 is probably what I want most, because then I can get the most, uh, more fabric, more
Mm.
options, more colors, more value, etc. And so then, and then if I think it's okay, I'm gonna like this for a lot of things, then I'll go a half a yard, the 18
Oh,
inches. But I almost never buy a yard of fabric. Um, just because, unless unless it is something that I'm going to feature and I need it. But I love the play of putting fabrics together that are all different and making them work. It's kind of the what would you say? The inspiration of seeing if something will work.
yeah. And am I saying correctly? Your border on here is pieced?
Yeah.
And so you are able to use fabrics from the inside of the quilt on the outside in a way that kind of helps draw your eye on it draws your eye on a beautiful diagonal.
Yeah, you can see that like there's a seam right here. I mean, and there's a seam down here.
It's very it's actually quite subtle where the seams are. If
Yeah.
um if I wasn't if I didn't notice the subtle variations in the fabric, I probably would have thought that it was just one fabric piece. Um, but there, because I'm seeing different colors in different places. I'm picking up that it's a piece and it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I mean,
So-
I really have a fun time with traditional quilts, doing them like this because it's just more fun, and it allows you to, or forces you maybe to do things that you wouldn't think about doing. And
Right.
that I probably one of my problems was I didn't know I probably didn't have enough fabric of any one thing for my border. And so I just probably decided just to piece it up,
Mhm.
what was left. Um, so anyway, but yeah, that's probably what I did. But so that's depth in a nutshell. Um, and you can again applique. You're probably just gonna do like we talked about, just overlapping, overlapping, overlapping. There's not a whole lot that whereas when you're working with um, different different types of designs, especially if you're working in traditional, then you're going to need to then you have to think through about atmospheric perspective,
Mhm.
getting lighter gray or less distinct, if you want to do that kind of thing. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so that's it in a big nutshell, I guess.
That was an incredible journey, both with the quilts and the the different ways that we can use color to create dimension and interest in our quilts. And it, it is incredible to me that there's still so much that we can explore, but
Mhm.
it's also important to pass on the techniques to the next generation of quilters so that they can see that there's a tradition, not only a tradition, but there's technique
Mhm.
that will guide them through this.
And this is I'm not, because I'm not, because I'm retired now, basically. I'm not knowing what the general quilter is doing nowadays, if they're, making simple quilts, or what else going on. Um, but they do, it's really important, I think, to be able to, whatever it is that your heart wants to do, to be able to do it well. And part of doing it well is being able to have your design work. And I mean, you can be a fabulous sewer, but if your design doesn't work, it's really sad because you put
Right.
a lot of energy and money into it. And so, to me, design is really, really important. And yet, in the field of quilting, it's not necessarily promoted, you know.
Right. Right.
And the things that I've worked, every once in a while I would get an awesome moment and over the years, and then I'd think, oh, that's so much easier now I understand, and that's the problem, is if you don't understand how something works, it gets frustrating.
Yeah, I agree. And if you can't figure out why it's not working,
Yeah,
then
can you
because
give
you're
up?
not sure of the principle behind what you're trying to do,
Yeah.
then it's much more frustrating it's harder to get to where you want to go.
Yeah. And I would imagine that there's still people who, I mean, there are people who want to stick with the traditional quilts of yesteryear, and
Mhm.
and if you do, you don't really need to use much in the way of design because the
Mhm.
design is already basically done for you. But
Yeah.
if you want to create something on your own, then it's really important that you you start working toward um, learning about how design works.
Hmm.
Simple things, you know. You don't have to read a design book, basically. That's too much work. But, and then trial by error is great.
Trial by error is kind of fun sometimes,
Mhm.
but understanding like understanding the principle behind that trial will help you understand what's working and what's not working
Yeah,
so that you grow in your understanding of all of that. So,
yeah.
well, Joan,
Thank you very much for inviting me for another little session.
thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. I am so excited. I cannot wait to get this posted. I just can't wait to get this posted. It's going to be so much fun. I will just anecdotally, I will probably post it mid-November because I have one other interview that needs to go up. And I'm going to do my outro later because I have a phone call that I need to go make. So, thank you again, Joan. You are just so
Welcome.
incredibly generous with your time right now, and I am so grateful.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
It's been fun to share. You
And
know,
we will do this again.
yes.
Yes. All right.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Thanks. Bye.